Okay, in chapter 4, we're going to go inside of the cell because life as we know it happens inside of these tiny little units. So, first off, cells are incredibly diverse. Your body contains trillions of them, and nearly all of them are specialized to do a specific job. So, we have muscle cells that allow for contraction so we can move. We have nerve cells that are going to send really fast messages to your brain. So, despite being really, really small, they pack in a ton of activity. And most cells are so small that you can't see them without help. So, that's where a microscope comes in. We have the light microscope. This was invented back in the 1600s, and this was a huge game changer. So think of Galileo's telescope, but for looking inward. Light microscopes do have limits. They can only zoom in so much before they're restricted by the properties of light themselves. So this is why scientists in the 1930s invented the electron microscope, which is going to use a beam of electrons instead of light. So these can actually zoom in 2 million times and let us see the tiny details like the structure of viruses and the inner membranes of cells. So you might be wondering, why are cells so small? It has everything to do with surface area to volume ratio. So imagine a cell as a small box. As it gets bigger, its volume increases faster than its surface area. But cells need that surface area in order to bring in nutrients and get rid of waste. So being small actually helps them survive. So to work around the size limitation, some cells get creative. So for example, cells lining your small intestines have microvilli. These are just tiny finger-like projections that are really going to help increase surface area so they can absorb more nutrients. So it's kind of like folding up a long hose to fit in a small bucket. It's all about maximizing efficiency. So the plasma membrane is kind of like the bouncer of the cell. This structure is going to form the outer boundary, and it's basically going to decide what gets in and what stays out. It's made up of a phospholipid bilayer. So we talked about the structure of a phospholipid in the previous chapter, which is really just saying that it's 2 layers of fat molecules with a split personality, because we already talked about this. The heads are hydrophilic, water-loving, and they're going to face outward, while the tails are hydrophobic, water-fearing, and they're going to point inward. And so this design allows for what we call a semi-permeable barrier, where some things can get in and some things cannot. So we call this the fluid mosaic model. Fluid because parts move around like a soft oil layer, and mosaic because it's made up of a bunch of different proteins that are embedded in the membrane. So let's talk more about the membrane proteins. So each type has a different job. So we have channel proteins. These are like tunnels. They let specific molecules pass through them, kind of like potassium or chloride ions. Without them, your nerve cells couldn't fire and your heartbeat wouldn't be able to be regulated. We also have transport proteins. These are going to help move molecules across the plasma membrane, sometimes against the flow, which means that it's going to require energy. We also have cell recognition proteins. And they're going to let your immune system know which cells belong to you and which ones are intruders. So if this system goes haywire, it can actually lead to autoimmune diseases. Our next type is going to be receptor proteins, and these are basically the cell's sensors. So when a signal molecule binds to one, it's going to trigger a response inside of the cell, like telling a muscle cell to contract or a liver cell to release sugar into the bloodstream. We also have enzymatic proteins, which are going to help speed up chemical reactions right at the membrane. Some are going to be part of digestion, like breaking down nutrients as they pass by. And our final one is going to be junction proteins, and these are going to help cells stick together and communicate. So in your skin, they actually form tight seals, so water doesn't just leak out of you like a sponge.